The first time he noticed me, I was pretending a diner booth was safer than a bedroom. That was the kind of lie a person only tells when the truth has already taken everything soft out of her voice. Maple Street Diner never really closed, not completely. It just changed faces after midnight. The families disappeared first, then the college kids, then the lonely men in work boots who drank coffee like it was medicine. By 3 in the morning, the place belonged to truck drivers, nurses, cops, cab drivers, and people like me, people who needed the lights to stay on because darkness asked too many questions. My name was Emma Parker. 24 years old. White apron. Black dress. Hair pinned back so tight my scalp hurt. Smile ready even when my feet felt like broken glass inside cheap shoes. I worked the night shift because it paid $1 more per hour, and because nobody asked why I never went home if I was still wiping counters when the sun came up. At least almost nobody. The first time Sebastian Cross came in, he sat in booth 7 with a cup of black coffee and 3 men in dark suits who spoke softly enough to make the whole diner listen harder. He did not look like the kind of man who belonged under fluorescent lights. He looked like he owned the shadows the lights were trying to chase away. Pale skin. Dark hair. A gray overcoat folded beside him. Hands still on the table. Eyes that noticed things people worked very hard to hide. I had served dangerous men before. Chicago had plenty of them. They tipped well, spoke little, and treated waitresses like furniture that could refill coffee. Sebastian was different. He said thank you. He looked at my face when he said it. And when his men left at 4:20, he stayed. By then my manager had gone to the back office, the cook was smoking near the alley door, and the other waitress, Linda, was counting her cash tips with her purse already on her shoulder. "You heading home, Emma?" she asked like she always did. I wiped the same clean table for the 3rd time. "In a bit. You say that every night." I smiled without showing teeth. I have somewhere to be. It was not technically a lie. Place could be a bus stop, a laundromat with chairs near the dryers, a chapel basement that served free breakfast on Tuesdays, a cheap motel across town where my little brother Noah slept with the chain lock on and his backpack against the door. Somewhere was not home. Somewhere was just the word you used when home had become unsafe to say out loud. Linda left through the front, the bell above the door giving one tired ring. I kept wiping. The red vinyl booth near the window was already clean, but I wiped it again because if my hands stopped moving, my thoughts started. My phone sat face down beside the napkin dispenser. Every few seconds I looked at it. No missed calls. No texts. No warning from Noah. That should have comforted me. It did not. Quiet was only peaceful for people who trusted what came after it. I slid into the last booth to roll silverware, telling myself I would rest for 5 minutes. Just 5. The coffee machine hissed behind the counter. Rain tapped softly against the glass. Across the diner, Sebastian Cross lifted his cup but did not drink. I felt his attention before I met his eyes. Heavy but not rude, sharp but not cruel. He had seen me glance at the door every time the bell moved. He had seen my overnight bag tucked under the counter. He had seen the motel key fall from my apron pocket and the way I snatched it back too fast. He had seen that I was not waiting to go home. I was waiting until it was safe not to. I lowered my eyes and reached for another fork, but my fingers would not close around it. The exhaustion hit all at once, deep and humiliating. My head dropped against the back of the booth for 1 second too long. When I opened my eyes, Sebastian was still watching from booth 7, and the look on his face told me the worst thing a girl with secrets can learn. Someone had finally noticed the shape of mine. Sebastian Cross did not ask me why I stayed in the diner after my shift ended. Men like him did not ask the first question out loud. They watched the answer arrange itself in front of them. At 4:38 in the morning, the rain turned heavier, tapping against the front windows until the neon sign outside blurred into red and blue streaks across the glass. The cook left through the alley door with his hood pulled low. My manager locked himself in the office to sleep before inventory. The diner fell into that strange hour when Chicago felt less like a city and more like a machine catching its breath. I should have taken my tips, changed out of my uniform, and gone wherever I was pretending to go. Instead, I stayed behind the counter and refilled a coffee pot that did not need refilling. Booth 7 was the only occupied table. Sebastian sat there alone now, one hand around his cup, the other resting near a folded newspaper he had not opened. His eyes moved once to my overnight bag under the register, then to the front door, then back to me. I looked away too late. Fresh coffee? I asked because waitress language was easier than the truth. You already warmed it twice, he said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, but it carried across the empty room like he owned the silence between us. Third time is tradition. Is that what you call it? I forced a smile. Customer service. He studied me for 1 second longer than comfort allowed. You are off the clock. I reached for a rag and wiped the counter near the pie case. There is always something to clean. Not that spot. My hand stopped. The counter was spotless. So was the table by the window. So were the chrome napkin holders I had polished until my reflection came back tired and warped. I hated him a little for noticing. I hated more that he did not sound amused. The bell above the front door moved in the wind but did not ring. My whole body reacted anyway. My shoulders went tight. My fingers curled around the rag. Sebastian saw that too. Of course he did. His gaze shifted to the door, then returned to me with a new stillness. You look at the door every time it moves. Most waitresses do. No, he said. Most waitresses look to see who came in. You look to see who might. The room went too quiet after that. Even the coffee machine seemed to lower its voice. I set the rag down and reached for my phone, checking the screen though there was nothing there. No. Message from Noah. No missed call. No new disaster. You always talk to strangers like this? I asked. Only when they are sleeping in public places and calling it work ethic. Heat rose to my face. I was not sleeping. You closed your eyes for 6 minutes. You timed me. No, he took a slow sip of coffee. I noticed. That word again, though he had not used it. Noticed. It felt like a hand near a bruise, not touching, but close enough to make me protective of the pain. I grabbed the plates from the pass-through window and stacked them too loudly. I am fine, Mr. Cross. His eyebrows lifted slightly. You know my name. It is on your credit card. And yours is on your name tag. I looked down. Emma. For letters pinned to my chest so customers could pretend knowing my name was the same as knowing me. Then we are even. Not quite. His voice softened. I have a car outside. It can take you somewhere safe. The offer should have sounded kind. Instead, it terrified me. Safe was a word people used when they thought they had the right to define danger for you. I stepped back from the counter. I have somewhere to be. Sebastian did not move. Did not argue. Did not smile like he knew better. He only looked at the motel key clenched in my palm and said, I believe you. That almost broke me. Not because it solved anything. Because he believed the sentence and still heard everything missing from it. The next night, I came back to Maple Street Diner wearing the same smile and a different kind of fear. Sebastian Cross was already in booth 7 when I tied my apron behind the counter. Black coffee. Gray overcoat. Newspaper folded but unread. He did not greet me like we shared a secret, and somehow that made the secret heavier. He only looked up when the bell above the door rang behind me, watched my shoulders tighten, then lowered his eyes to his cup as if he had not seen anything at all. That was the thing about him. He noticed without stealing the moment from you. I worked the shift like I was trying to outrun my own thoughts. Refilled mugs. Carried plates. Smiled at a truck driver who called me honey. Counted change for a nurse. With dark circles under her eyes. Wiped syrup off table 4. Pretended my phone was not burning a hole through my apron pocket. Noah had promised to text before midnight. He did not. I checked at 12:20. Nothing. 1:15. Nothing. 2:40. Still nothing. By 3:17 in the morning, the diner had thinned to 4 customers, rain ticking against the windows, the cook humming low in the kitchen, and Sebastian sitting alone in the corner like a shadow that had learned patience. Then my phone rang. The sound cut through the room so sharply I dropped a spoon into the sink. I saw Noah's name on the screen and answered before the second ring. Noah. I turned away from the counter, lowering my voice, but panic does not know how to be quiet. Are you okay? His breathing came first. Young. Shaky. Trying to sound older than 15. Emma, someone knocked. My fingers tightened around the phone. Did you open the door? No good. Keep the chain on. I moved toward the storage hallway, but the corded phone by the register rang at the same time, and the cook called my name from the pass-through. Too many sounds. Too much light. The room tilted at the edges. Listen to me, I whispered. Lock the door. If Harold comes, call me first. Do not let him in. The diner went still behind me. Not silent exactly. Just aware. I felt Sebastian hear the name before I saw him move. Harold. One word, and the wall I had built around my life cracked down the middle. He said he knows where we are, Noah whispered. He left a note at the office. My stomach went cold. The motel was supposed to be temporary. Cash only. 2 bus rides from the diner. A place with 1 yellow lamp, thin towels, and a front desk clerk who did not ask questions if I paid on time. Did the manager give him your room number? I do not know. Put the chair under the handle like I showed you. I hated myself for teaching my little brother how to make a motel room feel less breakable. I hated the quiet on the other end. I hated that our mother's house was still standing somewhere across the city with blue shutters and a porch swing, while Noah was doing homework beside a vending machine that buzzed all night. I am coming, I said. No, he said quickly. You are working. That almost ruined me. A child should not protect his sister from losing a shift. A child should not know what a shift costs. You matter more than tips, I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. When I turned, Sebastian was standing near booth 7. He had not come closer. He had not cornered me with concern. But his coffee sat untouched, and his face had changed. He was no longer watching a waitress who slept in booths. He was watching a girl holding a family together with trembling hands and no roof that truly belonged to her. I ended the call after making Noah promise to stay on the phone with me while I got my coat. My fingers fumbled with the apron ties. Coins spilled from the pocket and scattered across the floor. Before I could kneel, Sebastian crossed the room and stopped a few feet away. Emma. My name sounded too gentle in his voice. I shook my head. Do not. I did not ask. Good. I grabbed my bag from under the register. Because I do not have an answer that makes sense. His eyes moved to the motel key in my hand. You have a brother. I froze. You heard. Enough. Then forget it. No, the word was quiet, but it closed around the air. Not like a cage. Like a vow he had made before asking permission. I should have been angry. I was angry. But under it was something worse. Relief. Sebastian looked toward the rain-dark windows, then back at me. Let me drive you to him. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to say I had somewhere to be. But the bell above the door trembled in the wind, and for once I could not pretend I was only afraid of being late. I let Sebastian drive because fear had finally outrun pride. His car waited outside the diner like a piece of the night had been polished and given headlights. The driver opened the back door without a word. But Sebastian did not get in first. He stood beside the curb in the rain and let me choose the seat, the space, the silence. That should not have mattered. It did. I sat on the far side with my overnight bag on my lap and my phone pressed to my ear while Noah breathed on the other end from a motel room 11 miles away. The city slid past the window in wet streaks of yellow light. Empty bus stops, closed storefronts, steam rising from sewer grates like Chicago was trying to hide its own ghosts. Sebastian sat across from me, not beside me. His hands rested on his knees. His face stayed turned slightly toward the glass, but I could feel him listening to every word I did not say. Still there. I whispered into the phone. Yes, Noah said. Chair is under the handle. I closed my eyes. He sounded so young. Too young for chain locks and motel carpet and vending machine dinners. Good. I am close. Sebastian looked at me then. How old is he? I almost lied. Habit rose faster than breath. But the truth came out tired. 15. Something dark crossed his expression. Not anger exactly, something quieter and older. And Harold. My fingers tightened around the phone. My stepfather. The word tasted like old dust. Like the hallway of the house on Briar Lane. Like the blue shutters my mother painted every spring because she said a home should have color even when money was short. I had not said his name out loud to a stranger in 2 years. Saying it in Sebastian's car felt like opening a locked drawer. My mother married him when I was 16. I said, staring at the rain on the window because Sebastian's face was too steady. He was charming when other people were watching. Fixed the porch rail. Brought flowers to the church picnic. Told my mom she deserved rest. My voice thinned. After she got sick, he started handling everything. Bills. Bank letters. Insurance forms. Property taxes. She trusted him because she was too tired to read every page. The car turned onto the expressway, tires whispering over wet pavement. Noah stayed quiet on the phone. He had heard pieces of this story, never the whole shape. Maybe I had hidden it from him. Maybe I had hidden it from myself. She left the house to me and Noah, I said. At least that was what she told me the week before she died. She made me promise the house would stay ours. She said no child of hers would grow up. Asking permission to be safe. My throat burned. 2 months after the funeral, Harold said there was debt. A second loan. Fees. Papers I had never seen. He said if I fought him, Noah would end up in the system while the court sorted it out. He said I was too young, too broke, too emotional. He said I could leave quietly or lose everything loudly. Sebastian did not interrupt. That was the mercy of him. He let the truth crawl out ugly and unfinished. So I left, I whispered. I packed Noah's school clothes, our birth certificates, my mother's recipe box, and $300 in cash. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was protecting him. The phone crackled softly. You did protect me, Noah said. I broke then, but silently. Tears slipped down without sound. Sebastian looked away, giving me privacy inside his own car. The motel sign appeared ahead, half the letters dark, a tired yellow lamp glowing above the office door. My chest tightened the way it always did when I saw it. Not because it was unsafe. Because it was proof of what I had failed to give Noah. A door that belonged to us. A kitchen table. A porch. A place where he could sleep without a chair under the handle. The car stopped near room 12. I saw Noah's face appear behind the curtain, pale and worried. He was safe. For now. I reached for the door, but Sebastian's voice stopped me before I opened it. Emma. I looked back. His eyes were no longer just watching. They were holding a promise he had not spoken yet. A house can be stolen with paper, he said quietly. That does not make the theft clean. I should have told him to stay out of it. I should have said this was family and none of his business. But as Noah opened the motel door and tried to smile like he had not been afraid, I realized Harold had used the word family to make us homeless. And maybe the first step toward going home was admitting someone had taken it from us. Noah opened the motel door with one hand still on the chain, and the sight of him standing there in socks, pajama pants, and my old University of Illinois sweatshirt made something inside me fold in half. He tried to look embarrassed instead of afraid. That was what broke my heart most. Fear had become normal enough to make him polite about it. I stepped inside first because even with Sebastian Cross standing behind me in the rain, I needed Noah to see that I was still the person who came through doors for him. The room was small, one bed, one yellow lamp, one round table with his algebra homework spread across it, 2 grocery bags beside the microwave, and our whole life packed into a duffel by the heater. The chair was under the handle just like I had told him. I hated myself for being proud of that. Sebastian stayed outside the doorway. He did not step into the room until I looked back and nodded. Even then, he stopped near the threshold, hands visible, expression calm, as if he understood that a frightened boy needed space more than he needed promises. Noah stared at him. Is he a cop? He asked. No, I said. Sebastian's mouth moved almost like a smile, but not quite. No? A lawyer? Noah asked. Not exactly. Then what is he? I wanted to say dangerous. I wanted to say none of our business. I wanted to say temporary because temporary was the only thing I knew how to trust. Sebastian answered before I could. Someone who heard enough to know your sister should not be carrying this alone. Noah looked at me, and his eyes were so much like our mother's that I had to turn away. Later, I would learn what Sebastian did after he left us at the motel with prepaid breakfast vouchers from the front desk and a promise to have Grace Miller call by noon. He did not go home. Men like him probably did not go home the way normal people did. He went to an office high above the Chicago River, where the windows turned the morning rain into silver lines and lawyers arrived before their coffee cooled. He gave them names. Harold Parker. Briar Lane. My mother Laura Parker. My brother Noah. He gave them the only thing I had let slip in his car, and somehow it was enough to open the first door. By 10 in the morning, Grace had found the property record. By 11, she had found the transfer Harold claimed my mother signed after she was already too weak to hold a pen for more than a minute. By noon, she had found the bank notice Harold used to scare me, a notice that was real in letterhead but false in meaning. There had been debt, yes, but not the kind he said. Not enough to erase us. Not enough to turn our mother's house into his weapon. When Grace called, I was sitting on the edge of the motel bed while Noah pretended to work on algebra and listened to every word. "Emma," she said gently, "do you have any copies of your mother's papers?" I looked at the recipe box on the dresser. Blue tin. Chipped corner. Strawberry stickers Noah had put on it when he was little. I had carried it out of the house the night we left because it smelled like cinnamon vanilla and her handwriting. "I have some things," I said. "Good. Do not give them to Harold. Do not meet him alone. Do not sign anything." My stomach tightened. "He has papers?" Grace paused. "He may try to make you believe he does." I closed my eyes. Across the room, Noah stopped writing. The motel lamp hummed. Outside, someone rolled a cleaning cart past our door, wheels squeaking over the concrete walkway. Ordinary sounds. Fragile walls. A life built out of warnings. "Miss Miller," I said, and my voice was smaller than I wanted. "If he lied, can we get the house back?" She did not promise. I respected her for that. "We can challenge what he used to take it from you." After the call ended, Noah opened the recipe box. Beneath my mother's old cards for apple pie and Sunday stew was an envelope I had never unfolded because grief had made me cowardly. Inside was a copy of her will, a handwritten note, and a small brass key taped to the paper. For Emma and Noah she had written, "So my children always have a door that opens for them." I pressed the key into my palm until the teeth left marks. For 2 years, Harold had made me believe I left home because I was weak. That morning, for the first time, I wondered if I had only left because he had hidden the map back. By afternoon, the motel room felt smaller than it had in the morning, as if the walls knew we had found something Harold never wanted us to touch. The brass key lay on the table beside my mother's will, catching the weak yellow light from the lamp. Noah sat across from me with his knees pulled to his chest, staring at the key like it might turn into a house if he looked hard enough. I wanted to tell him not to hope too quickly. Hope had edges. Hope made the fall hurt worse. But I could not look at my mother's handwriting and pretend it meant nothing. "So my children always have a door that opens for them." I read the sentence until my eyes burned. Then I read it again because for 2 years Harold had made me feel foolish for believing my mother loved us enough to plan ahead. Grace arrived at 3:20 with a navy folder, a quiet voice, and the kind of professional calm that made panic feel a little less powerful. Sebastian came with her, but he stayed near the window, one shoulder against the wall, gray overcoat open over a dark suit, hands visible, eyes lowered whenever Noah looked too nervous. He did not fill the room with himself. That was what made him impossible to ignore. Grace spread documents across the motel table around the algebra homework and takeout napkins. Property records. A copy of the deed. Tax notices. A loan statement. A photocopy of a signature that was supposed to belong to my mother, but looked too smooth, too strong, too alive for the weak Harold claimed she signed it. "Your mother's will names you and Noah as beneficiaries of the house," Grace said. "Harold may have had access, but access is not ownership." My breath caught on the last word. Ownership. The house on Briar Lane had become a ghost in my mind. Blue shutters, narrow porch, rose bushes near the steps, the kitchen window where Mom used to wave when I walked Noah to school. I had stopped picturing it because memory was cruel when it had nowhere to go. Then why did every paper he showed me say we had to leave? I asked. Grace's expression tightened, not with pity but with care. Because he showed you the papers that scared you, not the papers that protected you. Noah looked at Sebastian. Can people really do that? Sebastian's eyes lifted. Yes. His voice was quiet. That is why people like Grace exist. And people like you? Noah asked before I could stop him. For 1 second the room held its breath. Sebastian looked at my brother, not offended, not amused. People like me learn too late that power can either take rooms from people, or make sure no one takes them again. I looked away because I did not know what to do with a dangerous man who answered a child honestly. Grace tapped one document with her pen. Harold has been paying minimum taxes on the property and representing himself as the only responsible adult connected to the estate. That does not mean his claim is clean. It means he counted on you being too young and too frightened to challenge him. The words landed softly, but they changed the air. Too young. Too frightened. Not wrong. Not weak. Not stupid. Just cornered by a man who knew which papers to wave in front of a grieving girl. My phone buzzed on the bed before anyone could speak again. The screen showed Harold Parker. My stomach turned to ice. Noah went pale. Sebastian saw both of us change. Grace held out her hand, not touching me, only offering. You do not have to answer. But some fears keep knocking until you let them hear your voice. I answered and put it on speaker because I was tired of being alone inside his words. Emma, Harold said, warm enough to fool a stranger. I heard you have been asking questions. The motel lamp hummed above us. Grace started taking notes. Sebastian became completely still. I found Mom's papers, I said. Silence. For the first time in 2 years, I heard Harold choose his next breath. Then you know this needs to be handled like adults. Adults. Another word he used when he wanted obedience to sound mature. Meet me at the house tomorrow at noon, he said. Bring whatever you found. Sign one document, and I will leave you and Noah out of the rest of it. Noah shook his head hard. Grace wrote do not sign on a legal pad and turned it toward me. Sebastian watched my face, waiting for my choice, not taking it from me. My hand closed around the brass key. The teeth pressed into my palm, sharp and real. I will come, I said. Harold exhaled like he had one. But when I ended the call, I looked at Grace, then at Sebastian, and understood something that made my fear stand still. This time, I would not walk up to that door alone. At noon the next day, the house on Briar Lane looked smaller than memory and larger than fear. I stood on the sidewalk with the brass key in my coat pocket, staring at the blue shutters my mother had painted every spring, the narrow porch where Noah used to leave muddy sneakers, the kitchen window where she once waved with flour on her hands. The rose bushes near the steps had grown wild. The porch swing was gone. Harold had removed it, of course. He always hated things that reminded a room it had belonged to someone before him. Grace stood beside me with her navy folder tucked against her arm, calm as a courthouse hallway. Sebastian stood one step behind, not close enough to push me forward, not far enough to let the past swallow me whole. Noah waited in the car across the street with Sebastian's driver, because I had refused to let Harold use my brother's face as leverage. The front door opened before I reached the steps. Harold Parker filled the doorway in a beige cardigan, looking exactly like the man neighbors trusted with spare keys. His hair was neatly combed. His smile was tired and disappointed, the same expression he had worn after my mother's funeral when he told me grief was making me dramatic. Emma, he said, you brought company. My fingers closed around the key in my pocket. I brought witnesses. His eyes moved to Grace, then to Sebastian, and something careful passed through his face. He recognized power even when it did not introduce itself. This is a family matter. Grace stepped forward. This is a property and estate matter. Harold's smile tightened. And you are? Grace Miller. Attorney. He looked at Sebastian. And him. Sebastian answered before Grace could. Someone who knows what stolen things look like when they are dressed up as paperwork. The porch went silent. No raised voices. No threat. Just that sentence, cold and precise, cutting through 2 years of Harold's vocabulary. Harold recovered quickly. Men like him always did. Emma, I am trying to make this simple for you. Your mother left a complicated situation. I protected you from the worst of it. I walked up the first step. My legs shook, but they moved. You told me she signed away the house. Because she did. Grace opened her folder. We have reviewed the copy you filed. We have concerns about the date, the witness information, and the condition of Laura Parker at the time of the alleged signature. Harold's eyes narrowed. You have no idea what Laura wanted. I pulled the folded note from my pocket. The paper was soft from how many times I had touched it since yesterday. She wrote it down. For the first time, Harold looked at the paper instead of me. That gave me courage. Not enough to be fearless. Just enough to stand there while fear realized it no longer had the only voice. Grace handed him a formal notice. Miss Parker is not signing away any interest in the property today. We are requesting preservation of all estate documents, banking records, tax notices, loan communications, and any correspondence related to the property transfer. Any further attempt to pressure her or her brother will be documented. Harold laughed once, but it sounded dry. Pressure? I gave her somewhere to stay. I looked past him into the hallway. The old wallpaper was still there. Faded yellow flowers my mother loved. The house smelled different now, like closed windows and furniture polish. But underneath it I could almost find cinnamon. Sunday stew. Home. You gave me fear, I said. And called it shelter. His face changed. Only for a second. Enough. The mask slipped and I saw the man who had known exactly how young I was, how tired my mother was, how easily grief could be turned into obedience. Sebastian spoke quietly from behind me. You did not take a house. You took the last safe place she had. Harold looked at him with the first honest emotion I had seen from him all day. Not guilt. Calculation. You should be careful involving yourself in family grief, Mr. Cross. Sebastian did not move. You should have been careful building lies on a dead woman's signature. Grace placed another document on the porch rail. We will continue this through proper channels. Then she looked at me. Emma, you can leave now. Leave. The word used to mean losing. Today it meant choosing. I stepped back from the door, not because Harold had one, but because I did not need to win on his porch to know the house was not finished with me. Across the street, Noah watched through the car window, his hand pressed against the glass. I lifted the brass key where he could see it. His face changed. Hope, small and terrified but alive. Harold stood in the doorway behind me, holding papers that no longer sounded like truth. And for the first time in 2 years, I walked away from that house without feeling homeless. We drove away from Briar Lane with the house shrinking in the rear window and my heart still standing on the porch. Noah sat beside me in the back seat, both hands wrapped around the brass key as if it were warm. Grace followed us in her own car, headed back downtown to file what she called the first proper response. Sebastian sat in the front passenger seat this time, giving us the back like a small private room on wheels. For 10 minutes nobody spoke. Chicago rolled past in gray afternoon light, corner stores, school buses, wet sidewalks, people carrying groceries under their coats. Ordinary life. The kind I used to think waited inside houses with porch swings and kitchen windows. Noah finally leaned against my shoulder. Do you think we can really go back? I looked at the key in his hand. Hope scared me more than Harold had. Harold was familiar. Hope was a door I had forgotten how to open. I think we can try, I said. He accepted that because he was still young enough to treat trying like a promise. When we reached the motel, Noah went inside with Grace to review a few papers for school records and temporary safety notices. I stayed outside under the covered walkway, watching rain drip from the roof in thin silver lines. Sebastian stood near the car, not crowding me, not speaking first. That careful restraint should have comforted me by now. Instead, it made my anger easier to hear. How much did you find out about me? I asked. He turned slowly. Enough to understand why you stopped going home. The words cut sharper than I expected. That was not yours to understand. No, his answer came without defense. It was not. I folded my arms because my hands wanted to shake. You had your lawyer pull property records, bank papers, my mother's will. You knew my brother's name before I decided whether I trusted you with it. His face did not change, but his eyes lowered for a second. You are right. I wanted him to argue. I wanted him to sound arrogant so I could hate him cleanly. But Sebastian Cross had a terrible way of making room for my anger without trying to own it. I am not some helpless girl from a diner booth, I said. I kept Noah fed. I kept us alive. I worked nights, paid cash, moved when I had to, learned which motel clerks asked questions and which ones only wanted exact change. I did not survive Harold so another powerful man could decide my life for me. The last words came out louder than I meant. A motel door opened 2 rooms down. Someone glanced out, then closed it again. Sebastian stayed still beneath the pale yellow outdoor light. Rain tapped the roof between us. "I know you survived," he said quietly. "That is why I came." My throat tightened. "Because I was weak? Because you were tired?" He stepped back half a pace as if even the truth needed distance. "There is a difference." I looked away. Across the parking lot, the motel sign flickered over puddles. Room 12 glowed behind the curtains where Noah was safe for one more night. Safe but not home. "You do not know what that word costs," I whispered. "Home?" Sebastian asked. Something in his voice changed. "I know more than I want to." I turned back. He was looking toward the street now, not at me, and for the first time he seemed less like a man made of control and more like someone control had been built around. "I grew up in rooms where the locks mattered more than the walls," he said. "I learned early that a place can have a roof and still not protect anyone inside it." He stopped there. No performance. No tragic speech asking me to soften. Just one piece of truth placed carefully between us. "Then why help me?" I asked. Sebastian looked at me again. "Because you kept protecting someone while no one protected you." The sentence moved through me slowly. Past anger. Past suspicion. Past the part of me that thought accepting help meant surrendering ownership of my life. "I did not come because you were weak," he said. "I came because Harold stole the meaning of home from you, and you still carried it for your brother anyway." My eyes burned, but I refused to cry. Not there. Not in front of the black car, the motel door, the man who had seen too much and somehow still had not taken anything. "I make my own choices," I said. "Yes," he answered. "That is the only kind worth protecting." Grace opened the motel door and called my name softly. Noah stood behind her, still holding the key. I looked at Sebastian one last time before going inside. He did not ask to follow. He did not tell me what came next. He only stood in the rain-lit parking lot like a locked door, choosing, for once, to stay open. 3 weeks later, the house on Briar Lane opened before I was ready. Not because the case was finished. Grace said nothing that old and tangled ended in one clean morning. Harold had attorneys now, and papers still had to be answered, signatures compared, records requested, hearings scheduled. But the temporary order gave us access to the house, gave us the right to collect belongings, inspect the property, and stand inside the rooms he had made us believe no longer belonged to us. Sometimes justice did not arrive like thunder. Sometimes it arrived as a stamped document in a navy folder, and a key trembling in your hand. Noah stood beside me on the sidewalk with his backpack over one shoulder, taller than he had seemed at the motel, though maybe that was only because fear was no longer bending him forward. The blue shutters were faded. The rosebushes were wild. The porch steps creaked when I climbed them, and the sound went through me like a voice I had known as a child. Sebastian stood by the gate in his gray overcoat, far enough away that the choice stayed mine. Grace waited near the car, phone in hand, watching the street with professional patience. I looked back once. Sebastian did not nod like he was giving permission. He simply looked at me as if he already understood the difference between guarding a door and owning it. I took out the brass key. My mother's key. The one taped to her note. For Emma and Noah, so my children always have a door that opens for them. My fingers shook so badly I missed the lock the first time. Noah covered my hand with his, not to take over, only to steady me. Together we turned it. The door opened with a soft scrape of wood and memory. The house smelled closed, dusty, changed, but under all of that was something I had not allowed myself to miss. Cinnamon in the walls. Sunlight on old floors. The faint clean scent of the laundry soap my mother used to buy because it was always on sale. Noah stepped in first, then stopped in the hallway. His eyes moved to the kitchen, the stairs, the empty place near the window where our mother's chair used to be. "It feels smaller," he whispered. "Maybe we got bigger," I said. My voice broke, but I did not apologize for it. I walked to the kitchen window and touched the sill where Mom used to tap her rings while waiting for the kettle to boil. For 2 years I had thought coming back would make me weak. I had thought the house would swallow me in grief. But standing there, with dust floating in a stripe of afternoon light and Noah opening cabinets like he was checking whether childhood had survived in them, I understood something Harold had never wanted me to know. Home was not the place that never hurt you. Home was the place where fear did not get the final word. When we came back outside, Sebastian was still at the gate. He had not stepped onto the porch. He had not crossed the line I had not drawn, but he had seen anyway. Noah ran ahead to show Grace a box of photographs he had found in the hall closet. I stayed on the steps, the brass key warm in my palm. "You can come in," I said. Sebastian looked at the open door, then at me. "Only if you want me there." The answer was so simple that it hurt. I thought of Maple Street Diner. Booth 7. Black coffee. The motel room with one yellow lamp. The porch where Harold's papers lost their power. I thought of every night I had said I had somewhere to be because I could not bear to say I had nowhere safe to return. Then I stepped aside, not because Sebastian had rescued me, but because he had waited until I opened the door myself. He walked up the steps slowly, respectfully, like a man entering a church, not a victory. Inside, Noah laughed at something Grace said, and the sound moved through the hallway like light returning to a room. Sebastian stopped beside me, close enough to share the silence, far enough to leave me whole. "A home is not real if you have to be afraid inside it," he said quietly. I looked at the blue shutters, the wild roses, the open door, my brother smiling under the roof our mother had meant for us. For the first time in 2 years, I believed the word again. He ruled the city with locked doors and whispered names. But he gave me back the one door I thought I would never open again.